Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Man on Second podcast. My name is Eric Wiedeke. As always, I am joined by Joe Frisaro. And Joe, quite a performance today. The Marlins do salvage one against the Braves. They had their back up against the wall, and I can't think of anyone this Marlins team would rather have in that situation than Sandy Alcantara. He goes 9 innings, the complete game. Not quite a shutout. He allows 3 runs, but none of them earned. Uh, a, I think gritty would be the way that I would describe this one out of Sandy. He really gutted this one out.
Yeah, and necessary, and he's the Marlins ace, and this is what aces do. They stop losing streaks, they go deep into a game, and every now and then, when they're asked to go nine, they give you nine, and that's what he did, and just good for Sandy, and it's not surprising to me. He does well in day games anyway. He's a fast worker. He's able to get quick outs without having to rely on big strikeout days. As got a little bumpy in the ninth inning when Jesus Aguilar got lazy on that fly ball, try to, kind of showboat the first, foul ball for an out. He drops it and, extends the at bat for Travis d'Arnaud, who doubles. Then as the Albies doubles, the next thing you know, it's whatever the score was at the time,
Four
a two
two.
run game. Yeah, 4-2. And then they move Albies over and he scores, makes it 4-3. And the Marlins do hang on. But gutty, as you say, gritty, gutty performance by Sandy, and again, it salvaged the series. They're now just a half a game behind the Braves and the Phillies. So behind the Mets, who, as we know, just lost Max Scherzer. Jacob deGrom's out. Taylor McGill is out. The Mets are comfortably in front, but they have serious starting pitching issues with injury. So the Marlins are bunched up right there, and now they're going to go on the road to Tampa Bay on Tuesday, and then up to Atlanta. And good way to end the homestand. Excuse me, 9 games. I think they went 4-5, and like I said, they salvaged just one against the Braves.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at a guy, when you're looking at Sandy, it's so. I mean, it's such. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it because he's a guy that the Braves had 6 hits. That there were base runners on. He was really great through the first 3 innings. But then things kind of happened and he kind of started having to labor. Base runners reached base, but there's this macro dominance where if you look at everything inning by inning, you might say, oh well, you know, Sandy looks like he's really. I don't know that there was a couple base runners this inning. There was whatever happens, but at the end of it, he just keeps fighting through all of it, and it's almost like he just doesn't stop. He's just a machine. You know, base runners get on base 1 inning, he shakes it off. Happens the next inning, shakes it off. And by the end of the start, you're looking at 9 innings, and you're like, how did he get through all that?
Yeah,
It's just
finish. Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's just remarkable.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a throwback and a current pitcher all wrapped in one. He has that little bit. He could have pitched, in the Greg Maddux era, the Josh Beckett, the early 2000s, because he can go deep into games. 7.39 Ks per nine. So he's not one of those that needs to strike out. Yet, if he needs a 12 strikeout game, he could give you that too because he throws 97 to 99, 100 every now and then. He's got that power sinker and he attacks and he gets a lot of ground balls. So if he has some traffic, he's always one ground ball away from a double play type of situation. So, I've said this before on the podcast of all in 20 years covering the Marlins, the most improved starting pitcher I ever covered, meaning when you saw him originally, you were like, because people had a little doubts. Was he a reliever?
Yeah.
Did he have, they liked him, but he wasn't consistent. I saw him really struggle. I saw him in a minor league rehab assignment, really struggling on the arm side, throwing strikes. So he was like basically would be hitting every right-handed batter. He was so far at a sink. And then things just turned around, and then they turned around the hurry where now all of a sudden he's leading the majors, some numbers. He's leading the majors in innings pitched. which I highly value from a starter. 59 and 2/3 through nine games started. Robbie Ray is second with in 9 starts. Aaron Nola is third with 52.1 innings, and so he's up there. And a stat I looked at, Eric, I want to get your kind of thoughts on this. First of all, before I get you that, 6 complete games in Major League Baseball this season. Obviously, there's a game Sunday. We're recording this Sunday after the game. As of tonight, 6 complete games in the big leagues by starting pitchers, obviously, and Reed Detmers of the Angels doing no hitter, and Sandy's one of 6 to have at least a complete game. No one has had 2, and that in itself. I always find those huge because the bullpen gets the day off. And then with an off day Monday, the bullpen gets 2 days off on the way, preparation. But I was looking at something, everyone looks to numbers and we micromanage everything. But Sandy's averaging 14.80 pitches per inning. So if you can keep your pitch total under 15 pitches an inning, guess what? That allows you to go 7, 8, and occasionally 9. And it speaks to what you're saying. He had traffic, but he's still, I like that graphic. And I believe that's 12th among all major league pitchers. Excuse me. Yeah, 12, but it's also, there are 12 pitchers who have less than 15, that average less than 15 pitches an inning throughout Major League Baseball. So he's in a very small class. And to give you a perspective, 33rd, Sandy's 12th on this list. 33rd is Pablo Lopez at 15.76. So almost 1 full pitch more per inning. And those add up. Obviously, if you do over 9, that's 9 more pitches. So pitches per inning. Keep an eye on that stat because we know I didn't see a number like on a Luzardo or Trevor Rogers, but some of these guys that require more pitches. The other day, for instance, I was watching Zach Allen pitching in the 5th or 6th inning against the Cubs. They fouled off, Eric, I kid you not, 18 pitches in that 1 inning, in the 5th inning. And Gallen was sailing along, and that prevented Zach from going 6. He ended up going 5. I think he may have given up 1 run or 5 shutout. He ended up getting the win and pitched very well. But 18 foul balls, Sandy's averaging throwing 14.8 pitches per inning. So just a little perspective. When we see these pitch counts up in the corner, when the pitch per inning is over 20, 25 in the 1st inning, well, when you have that, you're coming out of the game in the 4th, 5th, 6th inning.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and it's really evident, because if a guy like Sandy, now credit to him, this is, like you said, he very improved. And I think one of the places that he's improved most, and it's one of the things that you see on a pitch per inning basis, it's the control. It means that he's number one, he's in the strike zone. He's not a big strikeout guy, but that actually comes to his benefit when it comes to the pitch per inning, because he's not working a bunch of long counts where he's just having these duels where guys, need 11, 12 pitches to be punched out. Sandy's doing his job. He's doing it efficiently, generating weak contact. Of course, that results in those runners on base a lot of the times, but it's part of what makes him able to go through, as many innings as he does every start. You mentioned it. What is that? 59 innings through 6 starts?
Yeah, 59 2/3.
Yeah, that's
9 starts. 9 starts.
9 starts. 9 starts.
Yeah.
That's over 6 innings per start.
Yeah.
He's
so
at
6.1 or 6.2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's it's really, when you look at it like that, how many pitchers today can you count on every single start? He's at least going to pitch into the 7th. You don't know how much further he's going to get beyond that, but he's going into the 7th.
Yes, especially in this day and age where it's max effort. You're not pitching for 2 innings later. And I wrote down like the 5 leaders in innings pitched. And one of them is our friend, and we've talked about him before, Logan Gilbert. He's at 52 innings through 9 starts. So Logan's doing great. We're pulling for him. Joe Musgrove of the Padres, he's at through 8 starts. So he's the only one that could kind of catch Sandy. If he has a 7, 8 inning start, he could catch Sandy by the end because he's got his 8th start coming up before Sandy throws his 9th start, for Musgrove before Sandy throws his 10th. But, Yeah, but it's bunched up. Robbie Ray, 54 and 2/3. Aaron Nola, 52 and a third. Gilbert Musgrove, even at 52 innings. But, to your point, batting average against Sandy is 201, which is pretty
Yeah,
low. Whip is 1.07. So, yes, he might have traffic. He might give up two base runners one inning, but he may have retired six in a row.
exactly.
Um, BABIP of 242. We've talked before about BABIP, batting average on balls in play. League average about 300. So he's well under that. So it speaks to the weak contact. It speaks to, even though he's not striking everyone out. Now, what tends to happen, and who knows, I don't name any Cy Young winners in May, because it's an endurance test. But let's say Standy had similar numbers with a 7.32, close to 8, let's say Ks per 9, and he's getting 205, 210 innings on the season. Is he going to be penalized in the Cy Young voting because a guy with maybe 170 innings but is striking out 11 per inning, is he going to lose out on the Cy Young? Who's the more valuable? Let's say they both have 32 games started. That's where I think the metrics kind of hurt Sandy in the eyes of kind of the mindset of the industry and fans and a lot of the voters who rely so heavily on Fangraphs or Statcast to kind of make the decisions for them. The true value of the pitcher. Because you usually can look at WAR. I'm not so high on WAR for pitchers. There are other things I tend to look for, but I like my starter to be out there, and I like my starter to go deep because, go back to the cliche where a true ace helps you for 3 straight games. You could burn out your bullpen the day before because you're not counting on using as many, and then by that ace going deeper, your bullpen's ready to help the day after. So that's kind of the mentality. That's why I like when teams, if they can line up 3-4 aces in a row, obviously they're just reaping the benefits of the arrested bullpen, the fact you're in the game, and you pluck the win today. So just kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, honestly, as far as that goes, I mean, if Sandy continues to pitch, to the numbers that he's pitching to right now, and he does it over the course of, let's say, 205, 210 innings, I mean, a guy would have to be unprecedentedly great over like 165. I'm talking like a guy would have to do pretty much what DeGrom did last year over the course of maybe 170 for him to be over the top of Sandy at that point. Because I at some point you just can't ignore the sheer volume of it all. At least as far as I'm concerned. If a guy's markedly better over and 20, 30 innings less, fine. But if it's close, give me the guy that's giving me a longer outings.
Well, what's interesting, as looking at some numbers, I didn't write this number down. I logged off Fangraphs. I think Walker Buehler is similar in the Ks per 9, which was interesting because Buehler obviously is very great for the Dodgers because he's one of those young starters who's trendy and he have a lot of Cy Young appeal. He's going to be on a team that probably is going to win the division going away again. And well, I know again because the Giants dethroned them last year, but what I'm saying that would they look at Walker Buehler is only striking out 7.8 or whatever Ks per 9. Are they going to hold that against him? I don't think they would. I think they'd build the argument in LA and the national media would pick up on it. The argument that we'll be building in South Florida for Sandy. But the beauty of Sandy is he's shown he can do this late. Right. There are a lot of pitchers who the attrition and they're saving bullets. I did look up something else. I have my chicken scratch here, but yes, the number of pitches. Batters faced 236. I did some serious research here, Eric. We got to appreciate this.
Absolutely.
I went to the well for this. 236 batters faced, leads to majors. 883 pitches, number of pitches. He's first in both categories. So, which isn't surprising when you're leading the majors in innings pitched, that you probably have thrown the most pitches. But the saving the bullets type of thing, and he seems to knock on wood, we wish for good health, obviously, and but he has that that kind of he throws 98, 99, and it's not hard, like a max
Right.
effort, like Luzardo being a smaller guy. It takes a little more to get, to get those pitches. He's not built as, the same. But keep an eye on those things. 5 grounded in double plays. That's the other thing that was up there. But that's what Sandy is. That's kind of the book I got on.
No, absolutely. So from one guy to another, Jorge Soler didn't play in today's game, but he's been really, really good of late. You're kind of starting to see glimpses from him of the guy that the Marlins kind of ideally thought that they were getting when they signed him to that contract this offseason, 3 years, 36. Um, and over the last 2 weeks or so, his last 10 games, he's hitting 293. He's got an OPS of 975. And the most absurd thing, I think, when you're looking at over the last ten games or so, the BABIP is only 286, and he's
Yeah.
hitting everything ridiculously hard. So,
Yeah.
it's he's been unlucky, and he's been fantastic.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a little fun on this one because I'm gonna bring a scenario back of if the Marlins could retain one of the players they traded, and had a Soler. I just did a story in the Palm Beach Post. I encourage everyone to read it about Soler, and I kind of focused on the hard contact aspect, and really noting the exit velocity because Soler this year has the fourth highest maximum exit velocity. I believe we talked about max EV a couple of weeks back. 117.6 miles an hour. That was his 468-foot homer, which is still the third longest home run tracked by Statcast this year. Mike Trout first at 472, and then actually Kyle Schwarber is 468, but I guess percentage or maybe as an inch or so more. But that is the only the two that are on the list ahead of Soler's home run that he hit. But when maximum exit velo and in a big spacious park like Lone Depot, I'm more and more of a believer that you gotta recruit players that can hit here. That's why
Right.
last year Duvall fit that mold, and I kind of did a compare contrast, and Soler has that kind of threat here. And we saw it with homer on the center. We saw him hit the Bud Bar the other day. I think they shortchanged him. I think they called it like 413.
Yeah.
But it was like 111 off the bat. Why do these exit velo numbers matter, Eric? He's hit a ton of balls over 110. The league batting average, and this number was a few days ago on Statcast. It changes by a point maybe every day if you go there.
Right.
But this is generally exit velos 110 miles an hour plus 764. Exit velos 100 miles an hour plus 559. 95 mile an hour, and that's the low rung of the MLB's. And Statcast's hard hit classification is 95 and above, 467. So even if every ball he hit was 95 miles an hour, the ball's in play, that projects to 467 batting average. Obviously, strikeouts and other things factor into to your batting average, but that keeps it in mind. It's for perspective for people. So a lot of numbers out there. Everyone pays attention. We could do weighted run per plus, OPS, and all the other good stuff. But literally, how hard you hit a baseball, and if you're in a very elite company, that makes you a real threat. And I asked Brian Snitker about it, and he said, "Yeah, you throw." He says with Soler, he throws the batting average out the window. He sees him up there. He's worried. They got to be careful because he's hitting fastballs. He swings and misses. But I think he got the K rate down to about 26, which is manageable. If he could somehow keep it under 25, then he's going to equal, the type of numbers I think the Marlins were looking for and the power. But this is my scenario because keep in mind with hard hit contact and all the other stuff, the king of that is who? Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah.
Who's to me tracking towards being in the MVP conversation, having a great year with the Yankees. What if the Marlins had kept Big G, and moved everybody else that they had to move and were able to get Soler? They probably don't have, Garcia, and you have Stanton as your right fielder / DH. What could that look like? Because in terms of all the power metrics off the bat, G is still the king. 119.8 is the hardest hit ball this year. Guess who has it? Giancarlo Stanton. He has a 57.8 hard hit percentage. The percentile stuff, which people love, he's either 100% or 98% on all power numbers. Um, and we talked about BABIP and we talked about Soler being a little unlucky. In 17, when Stanton was the MVP here in Miami with 59 homers, he had a 288 BABIP.
Yeah.
And I believe Giancarlo's batting average, his average exit velo is 97.7 this year. 97.7. Keep that in mind. It's ridiculous. His Soler's is about 92, 92 and change, or 91.8 or something like that. And that's ridiculous. That's about 3 miles an hour over league average. But what would it look like if your Marlins could have had that as your corner outfielders?
I mean, I don't think I need to. I don't want to. Breaking news here, but I think they'd be a much better ball club. No, I mean the tantalizing thing about reimagining Stanton here is, quite frankly, the move wasn't to recoup prospects or assets. The move was a salary cutting move. So it's not like if you're saying, okay, well, if we have Stanton, where all of a sudden we don't have Sandy or we don't have Jazz or something like that. Those guys were gotten via pretty much the Marcell Ozuna trade, and then obviously
the Flip Gallen.
So yeah. But you're pretty much just adding him. Almost like he's a free agent. It's almost like you would have just signed him in free agency, because there's really not much that you could say, oh, well, we would have to send back to the Yankees. So if you were to put him pretty much right here on this team in the middle of this lineup, it would change. It would change.
Change
I can't say exactly. I can't say enough how different.
And then he hit Stanton second or third, or select. Yeah, and you would have. I mean, either protection fifth or fourth if you want to stand third. And Sanchi, how much better is Jesus Sanchez? Let's say you went that way. Sanchi third and G fourth. It's like you would have had a lot.
Whoever gets to hit in front of Stanton is just going to have, they're just going to see pitches to hit all day long. So it's just a matter of. And you talk about this team struggling, with runners, with men on base and with runners in scoring position, just the exit velocity that Stanton gives you. If he's putting the ball in play, chances are he's scoring the run, one way or another. So it just does so much for this offense to have a middle of the order bat like him. And it would just make everyone better.
And then you're looking too, because that, to me, the point of Stanton is obviously it's hypothetical, and I'm not going to kick the dead horse because we know why. We don't need to revisit that. But my point is the Phillies have Bryce Harper. The Mets have Lindor. They got Alonso. They got we know what the Braves have with Acuna, and they got the Marlins don't have that guy. They have Jazz, who's electrifying, and they need that anchor, that everyone that is just kind of the reliable, identifiable player. Because they've mixed and matched, much like they do their closer, who the middle of their lineup is. Yep. Well, Coop's their solid, really good hitter, but if he's struggling, Aggie's their solid, really good hitter, but if he's struggling, Sully is their solid, good hitter. We're waiting for Garcia, and it's going to happen. Garcia's going to have some numbers. He'll probably finish with about 20 homers. Because those Soler and Garcia will probably get better as the summer heats up. But they don't have that guy, and I think the Braves are hurting that they don't have Freddie anymore. Because as good as Olsen can be, he's not Freddie Freeman. All Freddie Freeman is as the identifiable part of the Atlanta Braves. So I think the Braves in the middle of their run, even though Riley's a threat, and even though Dansby Swanson's a threat, and they got other great players, it's not Freddie's team. It's not that presence anymore.
Now, I do think I think a fun little exercise for this, and we might even get to see kind of a trial run of this, in our own division, depending on how things go with the Nationals and Juan Soto, if they're able to sign him to a long term deal, we can kind of get a glimpse as to, I think, what things could have potentially looked like for the Marlins, had they decided to hold on to Stanton. Obviously, Soto's a little younger than Stanton was,
Yeah.
but I do think that's going to be kind of a similar exercise that the Nationals are going to try to undertake as to what we're talking about right now with the Marlins. So that'll be kind of a fun little thing to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's and the funnest guy will transition over the guy who brings the most joy watching the Marlins. Little concern right now, Jazz Chisholm Jr. leaving the game in what the first inning, second inning, due to a tight left hamstring. He was
Yep.
spiked in the same leg last night, Saturday night, after being stealing the base. Weird things happen sometimes. Tight hamstrings are not good for speed runners.
No.
And so this is really going to test the Marlins, who were pretty much injury free in April, even up to kind of mid May. But Joey Wendell, I don't know how you avoid an IL stint on a hamstring, even if it's just tightness and you're being overly cautious. How do you just heal a hamstring in 2 days? Those things can linger. And so we'll see. We hope for that Jazz is fine, but it is very concerning.
Yeah, I mean, you're just hoping that that 24-year-old Jazz heals like a 24-year-old, I guess. That's really it. But this Marlins team, they are starting to accumulate some of the injuries. And this is something that we knew was going to happen, and it's really testing their depth. Obviously, Rojas goes down with the calf injury. We don't quite know exactly what's going to happen with him. Joe Dunham was called up today, and he played a little bit of second base. I do hope. I last I heard was full baseball activities for Joey Wendell, so hopefully he's right around the corner to kind of pick up the slack in that middle infield spot. Do you know anything about that?
I would just assume that Wendell's going to do rehab assignment, though. He's
Right.
going to have
Yeah.
to at least do a couple, and he's the same thing with it with a hammy. And I mean, hammy's usually at minimum 3 weeks, minimum.
Right.
And so if it's more of a cramp and not, but Jazz plays at a very high speed.
Yeah.
He's a race car that drives very fast.
Yep.
He in his game isn't going, 70%. He's not like, maybe you could just DH him and kind of nurse him on the bases, which, is interesting how the Braves didn't let Acuna touch the outfield grass here, didn't let him touch the warning track here.
Yep.
He DH'd the 3 games, but that's Acuna, and he could run, and he
Right.
just gets up to hit every couple of innings. I don't see how the Marlins could do that with Jazz. This is, if it's the playoffs right now, it's still early enough in the year. If it's the last week of September and you just have to get his bat in the lineup and maximize, that's one thing. But I don't see how you push that. I think you really have to be careful. And if it's 15 days now or even 3 weeks now, at least you get him back in June,
Yep.
and then you get them back up to speed. But again, tight hammy is, who knows? You just hope it's the best, but hammies are always something to be very, very guarded with.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point on Jazz. As much as he's been their best player, and I think that can't really be questioned thus far, at least of their position players.
Correct.
You have to be really cautious because it's a 162 game season. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Uh, and this is where the Marlins, they have to be confident in their depth
Yep.
that they have the guys behind Jazz, behind Rojas, to kind of keep the ship afloat for a few weeks.
Yeah, and that's every team. Eventually going to get it. It's what really hurts it, as you noted, is Wendell's down with
Yep.
a similar injury, and the thing is, they can nag. They could, you did this one sprint, and you're these guys when they get the green light, they play. You don't.
Yep.
You're hustling out of the box. There's middle infielders have collisions at second base, or meaning just even body contact.
Yep.
I think you saw today on the stolen base, Albies got hit with the ball and he kind of recoiled on a stolen base. The ball that the throw from home kind of skipped and caught him there, and he kind of recoiled. I think it was Gonzalez stole the bag and took third. But yeah, I mean, Jazz has been the igniter at the top of the order, and there's really not. I mean, do you go and Soler's had a little bit of the back, thing? Do you lead him off? Do you go back to that formula, or do you want him third? There are some things you could do. Is Joe Dunan's is he gonna be the answer for a little while? Hey, maybe,
Maybe. Yeah.
maybe,
No. I personally, if you you put me on the spot, I think I'd go Andy leading off.
They
Going
just
forward.
don't seem to do that, but that's an interesting call. They kind of like Andy in that kind of bottom third, 6 or so. But that would be interesting, at least maybe second,
Right.
But,
exactly.
But they've kind of shied away from that. A few years ago, they kind of toyed with Andy in the 2-hole, but not really, in a couple of years. But yeah, it's like a different dynamic. It's going to be a lot more station to station, and maybe they can mash a little bit, start getting the long ball, at least start hitting doubles and homers. To kind of make up for it. It'd be nice if Jesus Sanchez got hot again. That could kind of help pick up the slack. But as we look at this order, and they are scoring more runs. I mean, remember we've talked about top 10 in runs. If their pitching stays in the top 10 and the high metrics, and their offense can get to middle of the road and maybe into that upper, closer to upper third in runs, they are kind of pushing towards 15, 14. But without Jazz there, if it's a prolonged, let's hope it's a couple of days. But again, we're always cautious about hamstrings.
Absolutely. And just one last thing before I go ahead and close this out, because you did mention that the offense has been getting better. I do see it. It's just almost comically frustrating that the 1-run losses have graduated from 2-1 to 4-3, 5-4, and it's just. Boy, but the progress is the progress. It is a long season. I do think eventually it will start to bear fruit.
I'll tell you, we didn't get into this in depth, but I did want to mention some metrics, and we'll talk about this more maybe next week, because a lot of fans, we get caught up in the 1-run games, and they're now 6-12 in 1-run games. But there's something, everyone's kind of trying to figure out metrically what's going on. How does the Marlins, the 9th inning ERA, where everyone's scrambling for something. I like to simplify it a lot of times. That's why I just say, hey, look at numbers like runs allowed, not overcomplicate it. But this is something that has been throughout baseball. It's almost like the 1-0-0-1 counts for a batter.
Mm-hmm.
When the opponent scores first for the Marlins, 5-17. When the Marlins score first, they're 13-5. So they just went 4-5 in the homestand, but they were 2-5 when the opponent scored first. So they won their 2 games when they scored first, but they only won 2 of the other 7 when the opponent scored first. So everyone's looking for that narrative, 1-run loss. Oh my gosh, I have to flip it. Well, if you're always down to begin with, you've already had a rally to get to where you were. Even if it's 1 run, let's say you're down 1-0 in the first and you play 3-3 the rest of the way. Guess what? You lost 4-3.
Right.
So you have to flip that. But keep that in mind. I think that stat holds pretty true for many. So if you're going to get caught up in the 1-run losses, get caught up also in who's scoring the first run of the game, the Marlins or their opponent, because these numbers are pretty glaring. And these numbers translate for pretty much everyone. If you kind of looked, I'm sure the Dodgers, when they don't lose often, but when they lose, I'm sure the opponent scored first.
Right.
So we'll leave it at that. Great show as always, Eric. Tell everyone how to find us, and we'll be back on track soon.
Yes, sir. So you can find all of our podcasts at the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. That's where you'll find everything in long form. You'll also find everything on replay at the Man on Second Twitter page, where you can follow us there. And we also add the live commentary there. So thank you, guys. We do have more content coming. A big series, Rays Marlins, the Man on Second inaugural series here.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun to monitor. We look forward to covering it for you all. So thank you guys, and see you next time.